Hi everyone, it's Kelly from Kelly's Bead Boutique. So today I'm going to make one of my all-time favorite bracelets. I came up with this bracelet years ago and we taught it forever at the store, but we put it in the reserves for a little while, so now I'm going to pull it out and show it to you. It's my Urban Bling bracelet. Love this one. So come and join me so you can learn how to make your own bracelet. Okay, so to make this bracelet, what I'm going to use, I've got about 1 meter of 1.5 millimeter leather, and I'm using our gorgeous new antique gray leather. I also have 2 meters, and I think this is the 3-ply of the Irish wax linen. You could use 4-ply as long as you can get it through the seed beads, and so there's 2 meters of this, and I have a little tube because I'm going to make a couple barrel knots because, you know, I have to make barrel knots. And I have 6.5 inches of the Bling chain, and I think they call it crystal chaton chain or something like that, but we call it Bling chain. And I believe these are the 3 millimeter size. I have a little button, and I have some size 8 Miyuki seed beads. And I have a little board because that's how I'm going to build it. So let's get this all started. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my leather and I'm going to pop it into my button here. So I just sort of equal it up and pull it down. Now we have lots of leather to work with, so it doesn't really matter if I have this a little offset for the knots, so I'll just leave it the way that it is. So I'm going to take my little barrel tube, the curved tube, and I'm going to place it inside those leathers, and I'm always working with the outermost one, and I'm going to pull that around to the front. And I'm going to wrap it around once, twice, 3 times, and I'm working always towards my non-dominant hand. Put that through the back side of the tube, and I'm still holding on to that. Pull it through, and then I can remove that little tube, and we'll use it again at the end. So now I'm going to adjust this by pulling it up, and you sort of just have to push it up. So once you get it where you want it, you're going to tighten it up with the one that you were wrapping with. So I don't do it too fast. I take my time, and I don't want to have this smushed right underneath there. I want to leave a little bit of wiggle room. So once I get it where I want, then I give it a nice tug on there. Okay, so now that's what we have. So now what I need to do is to secure this piece to the board to complete my project. So what I like to do is at the very end, I just make a little bit of a knot in my leather, and I don't make it a really tight knot because I'm going to need this leather at the end, so it's just something to hold on to. So what I've got here is just a piece of just the rat tail that we have in the store. You can use anything. You could use a shoelace even, any kind of fiber that you have that you can tie down with. So I tie like a little sort of a slip knot in the end, and it can be whatever size you want. It doesn't really matter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook that over top of my button. And you can cinch it up if you're worried about it coming out, but you don't want to have it too tight because you want to be able to remove that button after. So now what I do, I'm just going to remove everything out of the way here so we don't get anything banged around. So I'm going to place this, I'm going to make sure I'm on camera. I'm going to place my button at the top here, and then I sort of tightly pull this around the back. Now I'm just going to swing this around, so I'm going to do it off camera. So after I flip this over, I'm going to take one end of my rat tail and put it on the other side of the knot and pull that nice and tight. And then I take that little end of the rat tail and I tie that tight. So that doesn't put too much stress on the leather, but it'll make this nice and taut. So I find the best thing is just to kind of pull it nice and tight, stick my finger there, or if you have a husband, ask him for some help. Sometimes that helps. And give that a good pull. And there you go, that'll make it nice and tight. So that's about as tight as it needs to be. It doesn't have to be super tight, you just want to have a little bit of a easier working surface. So I'm just going to remove my little mat here so that that doesn't bounce around. Okay, so now I am going to take my Irish wax linen and I'm going to unravel this and hope that I don't end up with any knots. I need to find my midsection on that. There we go. So now I'm going to place this underneath my knot there, and I'm going to pull one side out and then I pull the other side out. And I'm going to be doing 2 macrame knots. Now some people have a real hard time with macrame, and the way that I do it is that I look at it like a P and a Q. So on the right side we're going to be doing a P, and on the left side we're going to be doing a Q. So what I do is I take my piece that's on the right and I fold it over like this, and that creates a little bit of a P. See how that sort of forms the top part of a P. Now we're going to take the tail and make sure that it's over top of that piece. So that does kind of look like a P to me. Now I'm going to reach through this little hole here and grab that tail of the P and pull it up. And that's one side of my square knot. So now the key with square knots is people always say, well, okay, so what happens if the phone rang right now and I came back? How would I know what side to work on? If you look closely, you can see that little bump there. That bump will always tell you what side you're going to start working on next. So I know that my next side of my square knot, to complete the full square knot, is going to be on that side. So now I'm going to make my Q. So now I make my sort of my Q, which is going backwards like that. And now I have to make sure that this tail is over top of that. And you never want to bring it over here. It always has to be on this side of the leather. So now I reach through this hole, grab that tail, and pull it through. I love macrame. I find it really calming and therapeutic. And once you understand how to do it, it's super easy. So I'm going to make my P, pull the tail over, and then up through that hole. So basically what you're doing is tying, it's almost like tying knots around your leather. So I need to make 2 full square knots. Okay, so I've got my Q, and you see I just kind of grab it with my fingers and pull it through. All right, so now to make the next part of the bracelet, what I've done is I've placed on 2 of my size 8 Miyuki seed beads. And I'm going to start to create one of my square knots, but I'm going to place my chain on before I tighten it up. So I'm going to make my P, bring my tail over top, pop it up inside, and before I tighten that up, I'm going to bring my chain. Now I like to drop my chain down in between. I find it a little easier and it doesn't get all floppy that way. So I'm just going to place the first one's always the hardest at everything. So I'm going to place my piece around there, just around that first neck. Now I want to make sure that this seed bead is on that side, so I want to pop it up there. And then I'm going to give that, I'm going to tighten that up. Just get it sort of balanced on top there, and then I tighten it up. Now I'm going to do a blank one in between there. So I place that in between, and it's sort of like a Q again, but it's a little harder to see there. And I just tighten that up. And that secures that nicely inside there by doing that second hand one. So now I'm going to place on another seed bead on each side. So place those on. And the nice thing about the Irish wax linen is it doesn't really unravel on the end, but if it does, you just roll it between your fingers and you can get that nice little sharp edge again for putting your seed beads on. So just pop that on. The only negative thing about it is a little sticky, which you want it to be, but it ends up being a little sticky on your fingers. Okay, so push those seed beads up. Now I'm going to make my P, and I'm going to place that right in below the one that I'm going to use. So I place it in there, and don't worry if it pops out because you can always put it back in. Now I'm going to bring this tail over top. So you always have to make sure that you're pulling that over top and then bring it up. So you're going to go underneath there and up through the hole. And sorry, I have to sort of cover that with my fingers because you don't want this to fall all over the place. And now I'm going to tighten that up. You can see I kind of do it slowly, making sure that both of these seed beads are on either side there. I just kind of even them up and give it a nice little pull on there. And then I'm going to do a blank one in there so I don't have any seed beads. So I've got my cue, so I come back into the same hole that I was working on, bring this over top, and then I pull it right up inside that little hole. So right up there. And by having this chain hanging down the middle there, you'll find that it just is a little bit less messy. You won't have your chain flopping all over the place and driving you nuts. Okay, so now I'm going to put on, whoops, I'm going to put on another couple seed beads. So one on each side. Now people have asked me, can I preload all of my seed beads? Yeah, I guess you can, but I find it gets a little cumbersome and bulky and everything. So I don't know, I just take my time and just put one on each side as I'm going along. You know, I don't always want to finish a project in 2 minutes. You know, sometimes I actually like to take the time to just slowly create something and not worry about having, you know, to finish it super fast. Okay, so I push my seed beads up, pull my chain down a little bit, take my Irish wax linen, place it in between the ones that I'm working with, bring that tail over. So, and you see, I'm not even actually pulling the whole tail over. I'm just pulling it over the top there. So you don't have to go through all that cumbersome, you know, movement all the time. So I find the best thing is to grab onto that with my fingers so that I know where it's going and give it a little tug. And now I'm going to do a blank one. So I place that right in the one that I was working on, bring that over, grab hold of it, and pull it up inside that little loop that you just made. And just make sure that it's going nice and smoothly, there's no knots, and it's going right in the one that you just worked on. So I'll show you one more time, and then I'm just going to finish up my bracelet and come back and show you how to finish the ends off. Okay, so I'm going to put on a seed bead and pull that up. Now when you make your own, you'll be able to see how much leather you're actually going to need and how much I can't say that word, Irish wax linen you're going to need. I use a healthy amount because I don't like to work with little pieces that could possibly run out. That's just my thing, but you know, everybody has their own thing they like to do. Okay, so now I'm going to take that and place that in between the one that I want, go over top, go up through the hole, grab hold of it with your hands so that it doesn't flip all around. Pull that tight, making sure that these seed beads are on the top part. And I'm going to go back in that one there, go over top, reach down, grab that tail, and pull it on up through. So there you go, you can see how that's starting to look. So I'm just going to finish the rest of the bracelet, and once I'm getting close to the end, I'll come back on and show you how we're going to finish this all up. All right, so I'm finished my whole piece here. I'm just down on the last one here. So I'm going to do my last P, pop it in through that little space there, and making sure my seed beads are above that knot, pull it tight. And then pop that other one in the same space, do my Q on the other side. My fingers are getting super sticky now. And pull that nice and tight. Now I started off with about 6.5 inches of chain, but I don't think I'm going to use all that chain today, so I'm just going to trim off what I don't need. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie a surgeon's knot just so that I make sure that this Irish wax linen is tied nice and tight. So to do that, you're just going to tie a regular knot just like you would your shoes. So you just wrap it around and pull it through once, and then I'm going to wrap it around one more time. So it's a total of 3 times there, and pull that nice and snug. And you're not going to see this. It'll be nice and neat. All right, pull that nice and tight. Now I can undo the back, and I always make mine really tight so it can sometimes be a little hard, but this one's actually coming up pretty easily. So now I can just remove my rat tail from the button. Okay, so now I'm just going to turn this over. Sorry, it's a little noisy there with the table. And I'm just going to repeat on the other side, so I'm going to do another surgeon's knot. So I'm going to go through once and then twice. And just pull that nice and snug. Now you can see there it wanted to bunch up into a knot before we pulled it, so I just undo that and then quickly pull it tight. All right, now I'm going to take my scissors and just trim that off. So I do have a fair amount left over. I think in reality it's about 1 meter of material that you need, but sometimes you might need a little more, sometimes a little less. So you'll have to try your first one to see what you need and then go from there. Now I could take a little bit of this super new glue and put a dab on there, but it'll get in the way of me trying to finish this off for you, so I'm not going to, but you could put a little dab there. So now I'm going to undo my little knot and take out my rat tail there. Okay, so now you can see how cute that looks. So you can just kind of measure it around your wrist and figure out what you need. Now I've got a large wrist, so I didn't make mine to fit, but you'll find that you need almost your wrist size minus about 1/2 inch of the bling chain. This adds about an extra, I guess, close to 1 inch on this end, and then your ends that we're going to add are going to add almost another inch. So I'll finish this off and I'll tell you how much we ended up with, just so that you can kind of figure out how to size it. Okay, so I'm going to place my tube in between my leathers, and I'm always going to be working with my outer one. I'm going to bring that around to the front and wrap it around once, twice, 3 times, working towards my non-dominant hand. Make sure to hold on to that knot, otherwise it can come undone. So I swap hands when I undo like that, pull that through, and now I'm going to move that up. And I'm going to be pulling with the one that I was working with here. That's this one that I've got in my hand. And I want to pull it right up on top of that last knot that I did. I want to try to hide that knot a little bit there. So get it nice and tight. There we go. So now you can't see where that surgeon's knot is. And now I'm going to need to sort of measure for my button. So I know that I need about that much to get my button in. So I want to leave a space about that big. Don't ever leave a great big huge thing, because you can end up losing your piece because your button will fall out. And conversely, if you make something too tight, it's going to put too much stress on your leather. So you want to make sure that you're putting the right amount of space in there for your buttons. So I'm going to make my wraps once, twice, 3 times. And that's why we work with a little extra leather here. It makes this a whole lot easier than trying to work with the tail end of something, which is not very easy. Pull that out. And then I'm going to sort of see where I need to put that. And that's about the length that I want. So tighten that up nice and tight. Now you could embellish the end. You could find some larger hole beads that you can put on and make some sort of a thing there, but I'm just going to trim it off because I just want a little bit of a simple look there. So trim that off with a pair of scissors. Now I will take some of this super new glue. It's really important when you make these barrel knots for the end part of your bracelet. It's really important that you put a bit of glue in here, right on this part of the knot there, and right on the inside there. This is where your knot takes all the punishment. So a little bit there, and we could put a little more inside there, but I don't want to get too close, so I'll just make sure that's nicely glued. And the nice thing about this glue is it does dry nice and clear. All right, so I started off with about 6.5 inches of my chain, and I cut off about 1 inch there. So from beginning to end where my knot is, I'm sitting at about 6 3/4 inches, 6.5 inches for this bracelet. So if you take your wrist measurement and take off about 1/2 inch for your bling chain, that should probably be the right size for you. You can also add an extra couple knots here. You can embellish it in any way if you need to make it a little bit longer. But there you go. This is a little bit wet still, so it's hard to do up, but I'll just try and slip that over there. Of course, now my hands are covered in glue and on the Irish wax linen. But there you go, we have our beautiful Urban Bling bracelet. I bet you this is going to be one of your favorites, and every time you wear it, your friends are going to be just like wowed by it. So give this one a try. I will have a link in the bottom with all of the supplies. And make sure if you enjoyed this video that you give me a like, leave me a comment. I always get back to everybody that leaves me comments. And please make sure to subscribe to my channel. And thank you so much for watching.